Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jayam Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Varavijikacharya Ashtocharitata Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Varavijikacharya Ashtocharitata Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Samaveta Bhaktavrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta Prayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 30th day of December 2024 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in the 7th canto of the Science of God, 15th chapter, Instructions for Civilized Human Beings, text 65. Atmajaya Sutadinam Anyesham Sarvadehinam Yat Svarta Kamayoraikyam Dravyadvaitam Taruchyate Atmajaya Sutadinam Anyeshang Sarvadehinam Yat Svarta Kamayoraikyam Dravyadvaitam Taruchyate Atmajaya Sutadinam Anyeshang Sarvadehinam Yat Svarta Kamayoraikyam Dravyadvaitam Taruchyate Atmajaya Sutadinam Anyeshang Sarvadehinam Yat Svarta Kamayoraikyam Dravyadvaitam Taruchyate Atmajaya Sutadinam Anyeshang Sarvadehinam Yat Svarta Kamayoraikyam Dravyadvaitam Taruchyate Atmajaya Sutadinam Anyeshang Sarvadehinam Yat Svarta Kamayoraikyam Dravyadvaitam Taruchyate Atmajaya Sutadinam Anyeshang Sarvadehinam Yat Svarta Kamayoraikyam Dravyadvaitam Taruchyate Atmajaya Sutadinam Anyeshang Sarvadehinam Yat Svarta Kamayoraikyam Dravyadvaitam Taruchyate. Ladies? Atmajaya Sutadinam Anyeshang Sarvadehinam Yat Svarta Kamayoraikyam. Anyone online? Guess not. Atma of oneself. Jaya, wife. Suta Adinam and children. Anyesham of one's relatives, etc. Sarvadehinam of all other living entities. Yat, whatever. Sva-arta kamayoho of one's ultimate goal and benefit. Aikyam, oneness. Dravya advaitam, oneness of interest. Tat uchyate, it is called. Translation. When the ultimate goal and interest of oneself, one's wife, one's children, one's relatives, and all other embodied living beings is one, this is called Dravyadvaita, or oneness of interest. Please repeat. When the ultimate goal and interest of one's self, one's wife, one's children, one's relatives, and all other embodied living beings is one, this is called Dravyadvaita, or oneness of interest. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The actual interest of all living entities, indeed the goal of life, is to return home back to Godhead. This is the interest of one's own self, one's wife, one's children, one's disciples, and one's friends, relatives, countrymen, and all humanity. The Krishna consciousness movement can give directions for management by which everyone can partake in Krishna conscious activities and reach the ultimate goal, which is known as Svarta Gatim. This objective of everyone's interest is Vishnu. But because people do not know this, Nate Vidu Svarta Gatim hi Vishnu, they are making various plans by which to fulfill so many concocted interests in life. The Krishna consciousness movement is trying to bring everyone to the highest interest. The process may be differently named, but if the aim is one, people should follow it to achieve the ultimate goal in life. Unfortunately, people are thinking of different interests, and blind leaders are misleading them. Everyone is trying to reach the goal of complete happiness materially. Because people do not know what complete happiness is, they are materially diverted toward different interests. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So, this verse, for me anyway, is a lot easier to really understand than what the ultimate meaning of it is than previous verses. So Krishna has really shown a lot of mercy to me here. So this is a theme that is central to Krishna consciousness movement. It's the motivation of preaching Krishna consciousness is to try to save as many living entities as possible from being sentenced, if you will, to constant birth and death and old age and disease, and throwing down into the lower species, and just all the suffering that's going on. This Paradukkha Dukhi theme or motto that you probably heard, this I think was referring to Dvagana Das Goswami, or spoken by him, I forget which one. But it's the central mood of a Vaishnav in relation to the mass of people. And that is that he's feeling their suffering himself. He's not happy by their suffering. I've chanted this verse so many times, but it's very appropriate here. And Prabhupada is actually quoting from Prahlad Maharaj. You may know this, Natevidu Svarta Gatim hi Vishnu. This is one of the verses that Prahlad speaks to his father in preaching to him. There's various episodes. And the father gets more and more angry until, as we heard last night, the Shavanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam verse just put him over the top, and he said, you might as well kill him, and he found they couldn't kill him, and then he was really panicky. So that, you know that whole story. But this is Prahlad Maharaj's mood. In other words, why was he taking so much trouble to enlighten his father? He could have just said anything. You know, what did you learn today? Oh, we learned this and that, and we learned how to, spell and whatever, and then be done with it. But no, even though he was, the difference in size and power, at least externally, was just huge. He's a little boy, coming with his father. Father puts him on his lap, and very affectionately asks him, "What did you learn today?" Hoping that he would learn and tell him that, "Oh, we learned this Machiavellian principle and how to divide and rule, and the whole thing." But no, he immediately started preaching to him. He says, "Tatsaru manye," what the best thing, in my opinion, Father, "Tatsaru manye asadavaya dehinam sada samudvigna dhyama sadgrahat hitvatma patam griyamandakupam vanam gatoyad haramashriyeta." You imagine how much courage that took? He's completely confident of Krishna's protection. Here's a little baby, this huge monstrous demon who became even more monstrous by all this meditation and austerity. And here he's fearlessly preaching to him. So he says, the best thing, O Father, in my opinion, that's Sadhu Manye, I think. Best for whom? Prabhupada says in the lecture. Best for the Dehinams, for all the embodied living beings, which is practically everyone. Who are Sadasamugvinda Dhyam Asadgrahat. They're always disturbed in this material energy, more or less, sometimes extremely disturbed, and just panicking. And just imagine, periodically they have these crashes of airplanes, and they just had one in South Korea. It's terrible, almost 200 people almost died, But just imagine the consciousness of the people as that plane is going down, I mean, there's instances where devotees have been on planes that threaten to go down. And they live to tell it. What do they do? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare. I'll tell a story about Bhakti Narayan Swami in a minute. It's very interesting, funny actually. But in this regard. So he's saying, the people in general are disturbed one way or another. They're disturbed by dangers. They're disturbed by allurements of Maya that are taking the minds here and there, here and there. So many, disturbance is constant. And he gives the analysis of why in like 3 or 4 syllables. Asat-grahat. Asat-grahat. They're holding on to, grabbed onto, it's actually the same word in English and saying grahat, the asat, the temporary. They're taking shelter, as we heard last night, Narendra Prabhu, he cited the famous verse from the beginning of the 2nd canto, when Sukadeva Goswami is describing to Maharaj Pariksit, what should one do when a death is threatening? Because that's the situation. This is the basic question. And he says, oh, wonderful question. That's the 2nd verse. Very nice question. The question benefits those who hear the question and hear the answer, as well as those 2 individuals plus everyone else who hears. But then, Shrote Vyadini Rajendras Nanang Sandita Hasasha Apushitam Atmatattam Griheshu Grihamedinam. Are you familiar with this verse? A little bit? Very important. There are thousands and millions of subject matters to hear. This was before the internet. You can imagine when it just exponentially exploded. This is why people are so confused and crazy. Ninang Santi Sahasrasha. He said 1,000, now there's 10 billion. Apashyatam atma tattvam. Apashyatam atma, those who have no vision and have no interest even in the atma tattva. Griheshu grihamedinam. They're simply, the best thing today, that they're actually householders. But they're materialistic householders. And then this idea of, well, we have to have some shelter, because there's so many dangers. So they have these fallible soldiers, this famous phrase, fallible soldiers, Deha patta karata deshatma saineshva sattvabi tesham pramatto nidadam pasyan apina pashyati. So you take shelter of whatever you think can help you. First is the body. Keep the body healthy and strong. I take a walk every morning. I've had a new gym opened up just 6 months ago from Australia. Very, very popular. It's not just the gym. You don't just go in there and get on your own bicycle and run. There's coaches, there's music, and there's all the young people. I don't know, maybe there's a rule you have to be under 30 in order to join it, but everybody's all young people. And they're going there 6:30 in the morning. That's when I'm taking my walk, and they're streaming in, And I go by, and it's like when I first opened up and I started going by, I said, this is the temple for the body, and this is the temple for the soul, for the spirit. And so, why are they going? Because they want to get fit, so they can enjoy, So this is the first thing it takes off is your own body. That's where we're, But it's so fallible. So they apatya, then children, kalatra, the wife, etc. Adishu, nowadays I don't know what's going on with marriage. I don't even, it's crazy. But in the previous eras, even in the West, everywhere, you'd marry into a whole family. Then your family expands. So many in-laws, right? I remember we used to have seders. I was born in a Jewish family, and I'd see people I never saw before. I would see them twice a year. For this. So this is your greater family. So in India, I know that's the mood. That when you have a family, you have a household that you invite your aunts and your uncles and your grandparents, right? So that they'll also have shelter, and it's like a whole thing. So that can provide you the illusion of shelter. Well, I have my people who will help me if I get into trouble. So that's the adishu, that's the etc. Dehapata kalatra adishu, atmasainyeshu. These are the soldiers who protect me, the self, the atma. But they're asatsu, they're fallible. All of them have died in previous ages. And if you try to take shelter of them now, they maybe help you a little bit, but it's fallible. Not infallible. Atma Sangers, asatvapi. Tesham pramato nidanam. Even though you've seen or you know, it's not a mystery that all these soldiers have died, no matter people take shelter and then eventually they pass away. Because of the madness of intense maya, pramato nidanam pashyan apina pashyati. You see but you don't see. This is a phrase we find in the books. Seeing but not seeing, right? Seeing but not actually understanding. So this is the very beginning of the Bhagavatam. I say beginning of the Bhagavatam, even just the beginning of the second canto, because if you study it, the Bhagavatam really begins again at the second canto. Parikshit has sat down. There's Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, right? Beginning of the second canto, not any other canto except for the first canto. So this is starting the teachings. So this is a theme. This is a central point, is that you need to know who you are, you see, where real shelter is, and what the goal of the whole thing is. It's not that just you're trying to live a very pleasant and pleasurable material life and then die and that's the end of it. The revolutionary idea that's there at the beginning of the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita is that natve vaham jatu nasam natvam neme janadipa. This verse is not as famous, but it precedes najayate mete bhakti. Krishna's first statement of that, hey, nobody's dying on this battlefield. And nobody was ever born. Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you. There are all these fighters here, and never will be a time when we don't exist. Well, that doesn't go with our usual understanding, right? I mean, I was born on this day, and I'll probably die on that day. Well, yes, because you're not the body. The body is just a temporary encasement of the soul, according to what your past life and your state of entanglement in the material world or whatever. You get a human body. The human body is a great treasure, in the sense that only in the human body can we even understand this Svarta Gatim. What is the Svarta Gatim? The Svarta name is Vishnu. But what is that word? It breaks up into three meanings. Sva, Arta, Gati. So the Sva Arta means the real goal of the soul. Sva is you see, is me, your own. Arta, the thing that's really valuable. What is that goal that is so valuable, you see? And people have so many goals. And it all boils down to, that so much is surviving, the hard struggle for existence, somehow building, a situation where I can survive another day, week, month, whatever it is. That's the first goal. And then is enjoyment, the opposite sex, and then the family, and that whole thing, and how to protect all them, and this is. But it's all just very fleeting. It's asat. We've seen, I remember the first time, I was growing up, maybe I was 8, 9, when someone in my family died, my grandmother. We had visited her usually once a week. We drive into the city. I'm on Long Island, and she's in the Bronx. And she was a very nice lady. She had a good math sense, and my older brother, she would always give him math puzzles, and this is the way they related, and it's like that. Okay. And then one day, my mother told me, oh, Grandma died, from cancer, this and that. Oh, it was a shock. No one had ever died, But then you grow up and you realize, well, everybody dies. So many thousands, millions of people died in World War II, and they just die every day from old age and disease, and you realize this is the world we live in. But Maya is such that she helps you forget that. This is one of the main functions of sense gratification, where you can be pretending to be the enjoyer, the supreme enjoyer, even though your enjoyment is very insignificant. But I'm in the mood of enjoyment. And in order for you to be really enjoying, Maya has to cover you so that you don't wear it, well, I may die at any moment, and where's your enjoyment going to be? So all this sense gratification, one have planning for it, contemplating it, reading about it, sharing about it, speaking about it, all of that serves to, you forget your mortality, right? You forget that, and this is one of the silver linings of the pandemic. Suddenly everybody was conscious of death. I just go down to the grocery store. What are they breathing on me now? Okay, let me wear this, and everything. And then you get onto the internet and you say, oh, this vaccine, I just read about it. It's killing more people than it's saving. I'm not going to get the vaccine. And boom, the next thing you know, you're lying in the back of your brain. What happened? You know, then I read about it, you know, subconscious. In the hospitals, the people say, oh, can I get the vaccine now? No, it's too late now. You know. So this is the world we live in. And this is the material world. Dangers at every step. What's that verse? We can all chant together. Samasritarye padapallava plavam mahatpadam punya yasho morare bhavambude vatsapadam padam 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 yan vibadam natesham. You have to be deaf not to hear the poetry in that. Padam padam. Probably love that verse. So this is, I think, Shukadev's speaking to Prakrit after Brahma's prayers in the 14th chapter. So, as so many other verses, it lays it out as it is, you know, the world as it is. But then it also gives you the cure for it, the remedy, you know, nothing material. So samashrita, taking full shelter, samashrita ye, those who, samashrita ye padapallava plavam mahatpadam. Padapallava plavam is a word describing Krishna's lotus feet, padapallava plavam, which are mahatpadam. That has different meanings. It means where all Mahatmas take shelter, or it means the resting place of the whole Mahatattva, the whole universe is resting on. Mahatpadam, which are of who? Who is it talking about? Marare, the enemy of Muradim, Krishna, who's Punya Yasha. Does anyone know what that means? Punya Yasha? Yasha we sing every day. Glories. The glories. And Punya means piety. Just by glorifying Krishna, he whom just by glorifying you get pious credits. So what happens if one fully takes shelter of those lotus feet? The boat of the lotus feet. Samashritaye padapallava plavam. Plavam is the boat. Bhavambude vatsapadam padam padam. All right, who knows what that means? Come on. We need to learn these verses. Bhavambude, this is, forgive me, I don't want to get on this case. We have the most incredible writer of the verse on the board in the whole movement. I've never seen anything like it. So a work of art that he does, you know. And but he made a mistake yesterday. Instead of Bhava Dvaitam, it was Bhava Dvaitam. It changes that. Bhava and Bhava, totally different words. Bhava means birth and death. Bhava means change, and Bhava means your nature or your consciousness, you know. Anyway, no big deal. So this is Bhavambudir, the ocean of birth, death, old age, and disease. If you take shelter of the boat of Krishna's lotus feet, then what happens to that ocean? How small does it get? Calves, not cow. Cow is a little bigger, may not be big. Calves. In other words, you don't need the boat, you just walk over it. You take shelter of the boat. Vatsabadam. Param padam padam padam. And so you're now in the param padam. You're in the spiritual world, the supreme abode. Param padam. Padam padam yad vipadam natesham. Not for those who take shelter is this world where there's danger at every step. Padam padam yad vipadam natesham. So this is a very significant verse. If someone is intelligent, and say, yeah, I can see this world is so dangerous. Let me find out how I can, you know, get out of the danger permanently. Not just temporary. That's part of the illusion. You know, all this insurance, you know, you got the car insurance, you got the life insurance, you got the health insurance, you got the fire insurance. You can't get house insurance in large parts of Florida now. And since those terrific hurricanes blew through, or the insurance becomes so high that people are just winging it and think, well, maybe nothing will happen to my house. You know, so that's a perfect metaphor for any remedy in this material world. It's a false remedy. It's a trick of Maya. There's no safety here. Everyone is heading toward destruction. The body is finished. But that's not you. Everybody dies. Every single body dies. Who can deny it? From the ant to the tree to the flower to the fish to the human being. Every body dies. But nobody dies. Wake up and open your eyes. You're not that body, you're a pure spirit soul. Chant the holy name and attain life's goal. Hare Krishna movement in a nutshell. Jeev Jago, Jeev Jago. So, but that's simple, the simple truth, which is the basis of everything, that I'm not the body will die, and what will happen to me? then you have to go to ask the Guru, Tadvidi Patipatena. You have to find out from the sources, the Shastra, and those who are living the Shastra and preaching the Shastra, like Srila Prabhupada. So by becoming a pure devotee of Krishna, you also become very empathetic and sympathetic. That's the Paradukkha Dukhi. And I heard this Prabhupada lecture, because I hear every day, I listen to it, and how does it go? Loka Sukhino Bhavantu, there's a phrase in India, they say, let everyone become happy. Sarve? Sarve Sukhino Bhavantu, yeah. Okay. Yeah, so let everyone is, we'll drill it later and then I'll get it, I won't forget it again. At least not for a few days. So the basic principle is let everyone become happy. Where do you find that? Let everyone in my family become happy. Let everyone in my country become happy. But let everyone become happy? Nobody has that kind of vision except the devotees. Every human being and every soul is possible. Prabhupada would, little insects would come, I'll give them a little prasadam, and he would be, you say, this is a living entity, just like we are. So that's the vision and the motivation, the motive of the preaching. That's why the greatest devotees, and of course Lord Chaitanya showed as the example, they're always concerned with spreading the truth and spreading the blessing to others. Because we're all brothers. We're all from the same Father. So that's the real basis of universal peace and universal brotherhood, Prabhupada would always say. You can't do it on the material level. And that's why there's, there's racism and, keep this one out, round them up, send them away. It's madness. It's just madness. So the actual goal, as Prabhupada says in the Purport, the act of one's own self, one's wife, one's children, one's disciples, one's friends, relatives, countrymen, and all humanity. So every human being can actually understand, because of the intelligence, that this is the goal and that I should make it my primary goal. Everything else should be subsidiary. Yes, I have to maintain the body or the family, that's my responsibility. But even in doing that, if the center of your attention and the center of your aspiration is Krishna, then even that can be part of your devotional service. That's the whole idea. And that's why I wanted to cite one verse from the 11th canto, which comes up. And it's a wonderful purport here by Vidyananda Maharaj. This is the early 11th canto. We started with the 11th canto. I wasn't on the project until the 20th chapter of the 11th canto. And the editing is really, really done very well by Maharudra Prabhu, but he had a health issue and I had to quit the project. But this is a verse spoken by one of the 9 Yogendras. They all come on the stage in the second and third chapter of the 11th canto. And all these little lessons, they each have a cogent lesson, maybe 10 or 15 verses, And they're all important. What are the different stages of devotees? Where do we get Ishvare Tadarineshu Balisheshu Jisachicha? I don't know if you know about this. The Prabhupada wanted us to come to the Madhya, at least the Madhyama Adhikari stage. We can aspire to that. Then what is it? What is the characteristic? Then he has, Sanskrit's a great language. So he has a list of 4, then the next 4 things describe each one respectively, the relation. Ishvare Tadarineshu Balisheshu Dvisatsucha. Is it familiar verse to you? You may not know it. Prema, Maitri, Kripo, Peksha, Yakaroti, Samadhyama. So what does it mean? Ishvara, that's the Supreme Lord. So how do we relate to Him? We try to develop love. Ishvara, Prema, and then for devotees, Adineshu, those in relation to the Ishvara, but friendship. Friendship with devotees, where we want to share, the dati, but the gunnati, like in the nectar of instruction, Adineshu. Balisheshu, the innocent. That's what the marathon is all about. You're not going to distribute books to the out-and-out demons, generally speaking. They won't stop at your table or whatever. But those who are innocent, who are maybe, they're receptive to what a degree. Then you try to show mercy by giving them some instruction, giving them some prasad, and giving them a book, and most important. Balisheshu, Dvishatsucha. What about those who are out-and-out envious, the demons? Prema might kripa upeksha. You ignore them. You avoid them. You don't get into a big yelling match on the street. You avoid them. So this is how a Madhyama Adhikari is meant to, in preaching. In relating to others. So that's okay. What did I do here? What did I do? Okay, I'm sorry, I hit this thing. I lost my place. There it is. So how can one, in one's ordinary life, someone whose household is not a full-time devotee needs to associate with non-devotees in the course of their day, you know, that happens. But here's what the mood should be, you know, that how can one make one's work, or whatever one's doing, to support the family, also part of one's devotional life. So he says, Kayena bacha manasin diyarvayam buddhyatmana vanusata swabhavat karoti yadyat sakalam padasmay narayanayeti samarpayetat. In accordance with the particular nature one has acquired in conditioned life, whatever one does with body, words, mind, senses, intelligence, or pure consciousness, one should offer to the Supreme, thinking this is for the pleasure of Lord Narayan. So the question often comes up, oh, I'm so absorbed at work, how can I think of Krishna all the time? Well, this is how one has to develop it. He wants to think, well, yeah, now I'm just typing this report that has nothing to do with Krishna, but, you know, directly, but I'm going to get paid for that, and that's going to go to support the my household, and there I have my deities, and I'll buy something like, you know, so it's devotional service. So that's the idea, that everything we do, every motion of our mind, senses, whatever we got, the working senses, I'm doing this for Narayan. Now, if you're not really doing it for Narayan, then okay, I don't want to do that. Well, let me do it in such a way that Narayan. And of course, the obvious way is that, well, you earn so much money and you give as much as possible to serve Krishna. You know, so therefore, the whole idea of having the job, yes, the fruit of this is going to be enjoyed by Krishna, and that's what Karoshi Yadashyasi Yadjosi. That's what the verse was quoted in the previous purport. So this is a very nice meditation, and it's like, okay, I'm walking from here to the walk-in. Oh, every step, I'm walking for Krishna. You know, I'm using my feet. You know, in other words, every breath. I invented a process of meditation which actually helped me to come to Krishna consciousness. I'm sorry I have all these anecdotes, but this one is really significant. And it's something that we can all adopt. Anyway, I belong to a yoga group, and the meditation was part of it. It's integral yoga. I don't know if it's still around, but we did hatha yoga, of course, thing bending. But then we did pranayama. Then we did chanting, Om Namo Shivaya, Om Namo Shivaya. And then we'd also be Hare Krishna in there, you know. And then we meditate. You know, you'd sit and you know, we'd be able to do lotus posture, you know. So you needed a mantra to meditate on. So I didn't know how great Hare Krishna mantra was, so I took Om. I knew about Om. And I took Om, falling asleep. So so I got to do it. So then in one of my they had a bookstall, a book room, and a gift shop and everything, you know. And in the gift shop there was this booklet that had been written about the glories of the Hare Krishna mantra. Where it's not at the temple, it's at the yoga studio. How did that happen? The guru of the guru of that place, I'm not going to give names, he was in South Africa. He's from India, and you know, India, there were Indians, there were a lot of diaspora Indians that went to South Africa. And so he had established a center there, and this was the booklet commemorated the 25th anniversary of the non-stop chanting of Hare Krishna at this center. Wow. And there were all these essays about the glories of the Hare Krishna mantra, about people I never heard of before, but they were learned scholars and I guess maybe some devotees. But it was like amazing. Well, this sounds like my mantra. You know, this is all before I even went to the temple. Then when I went there, and they're all chanting Hare Krishna. So I took that to be my mantra. And I invented, okay, it's not very complicated, because I'm watching the breath, you know, the pranayama. They're doing this, you know. So on the in-breath, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. And on the out-breath, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. So I was doing that in my head, and just, you know, watching the breath and visualizing the printout in my brain, you know. I invented it. It worked. It really... I would be through with that maybe 20-minute meditation if it was even. Then I'd go to work and I would still, you know, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Then I would go out on the patients. I was in the hospital. I would work and I'd try to project the mantra silently. You know, I didn't want to get into trouble. You know, try to cure them. They didn't jump out of bed, believe me. Anyway, I'm not going to tell you the story. But after I joined, I also tried to do that for some devotees, and it seemed to work for a little bit. I'll tell you that about it later. So the point was, just thinking of Krishna in the form of the holy name, as we all experience, is so potent that even if the mind wanders sometime, you bring it back and it's work, but still the effect is dramatic. It's such a powerful mantra, and that was why Prabhupada, when he came to America, basically chanting the holy name and prasadam, and then very wise. I think he'd do the prasadam after the lecture. So if you want the prasadam, you have to sit in the lecture. Oh, okay. That's how, and that's still the format. Sunday feast, right? Kirtan and lecture. When's the prasadam? He said, just be patient. Listen to you're not that body. So. Back to our verse of the day. So this is the actual interest, and that's so much part of our own understanding. Am I slacking off? How am I going to go back to Godhead? Do you want to go back to Godhead? Yes, I do want to go back. I want to get out of this. All right, get serious. Get up early. Come out to Mangalarti. In other words, seeing the goal. And then understanding, yes, there's a marga, there's a path to the goal, which is the discipline, and that's the process of Prabhupada. And that's why you find, the nectar of devotion. There's so much about the different rasas, the wonderful maternal relation with Mother Yashoda and Krishna, the description of Krishna and his friends and everything. Well, that's part of the goal, that it's wonderful to read about. But there's also so much offenses to be avoided, right? The do's and the don'ts. Smartavyak satatam Vishnu vismartavyo najata chit. Salva vidinashedikshur etiyo eva kinkara. So you understand the great value of always remembering Krishna. And then you have a perfect example, of Srila Prabhupada, who was fully Krishna conscious and was able to undertake the most impossible mission. Talking about mission impossible. Come to America in his advanced age, 69. He actually turned 69 on the boat. Because it was August, and it was, but still his health wasn't that great, and the boat was tough. It was seasickness, the heart attacks, and even after he came, so much hardship, the cold winter which he never had. There's a movie. Many of you have seen this movie. I just happened to run into it on the internet, and I was just watching Hare Krishna, the mantra, the movement, and the guru who started it all. I think it's. So it shows, picture Prabhupada walking, in the cold. He had the coat, but the snow and all this. And the point was, a whole year almost, he really didn't make much headway. He had one or two people who were interested, to help him. But then, Krishna directed him downtown, the story, and, in Bowery. I mean, I know the Bowery. I grew up near New York. I lived in New York. And now we have, on every street corner, there's a homeless, and there's in those days, if you were homeless, especially if you were a drunkard, homeless, then you went to New York and you were able to find a place on the Bowery. Sometimes the place is just a place on the sidewalk, but at least you'd be with other people who are like you, So that's what it was like that. And Prabhupada, he tolerated all of that because he was getting an audience. And some of the early devotees who were there were really. They saved all of us because they were responsive and they encouraged Prabhupada. Yes, we can actually make headway. Mukunda, was so key in getting the place, and music. So anyway, Krishna, gave Prabhupada some success. First, he was real hardship, then a success, and gradually, then he had his heart attack, and he went back to India, and all the devotees. There were like 3 centers. I think they had New York, San Francisco, maybe Montreal. And everyone was chanting and praying, sending Prabhupada letters, please come back, please come back, please come back. And so at the end of the year, in December, he comes back, and they show the return of Prabhupada on the plane, and devotees are so thankful, crying and everything, And the movement took off from there. So all of that, was Krishna's mercy on us. That he empowered Prabhupada to do that and have the faith and the success. So this 7th canto with Prahlad's, his his adventures with his father, and his teachings to his friends, and his teachings to Hiranyakashipu, and his prayers to Nrsingadev, all of that is so instructive. And this is just the very end of that, you know, and that Prahlad isn't here, but Yudhishthira is instructing, Narada Muni is instructing Yudhishthira in all of these points, winding up. So I'm going to suspend it there if there's any questions or comments. Otherwise, we'll end with a poem like I do on my evening classes. By the way, anyone is interested, we have class 7:15 p.m. Gita class if you're around. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Thank you for the class review, Prabhu. Earlier in your class, you mentioned how, you know, people's minds are always disturbed, you know, material nature. And then you were going to tell the story of Maharaj on the plane.
Oh, yes. You know. Yes, thanks very much. You want to hear it? Okay. This is an amazing story. So, this is Maharaj, you know, in his pre-diabetes. He goes every year to Mayapur. He's active. I remember, he may not know this. When I first came here, he was in his household days, wearing white, but he's the president, GBC, and we would lead kirtan, you know. And he had one interesting thing at the end of the morning kirtan, the Mangalarti kirtan. He'd be singing Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare, very the end, you know. Not after you. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna. You go down with that like that. I remember, and that's very interesting because I'm a musician, you know. I grew up with all music. And so I adopted that in the kirtan. I still do it. And sometimes he looks over at me, you know, because he remembers. He thinks I don't remember where I got it. I'm going to tell him. But anyway, so he would fly every year to Mayapur, you know. And oftentimes he would take the western route. He would go over the Pacific Ocean, you know. And maybe Singapore Air or something. And he knew from experience that when you get to Japan, you're likely going to get some turbulence, you know. So he was prepared. So he describes, he's sitting next to this woman who's, you know, she's like, what are you? You know, because he's wearing his dhoti and everything. So she wasn't about ready to talk to him or anything. She was absorbed in anything. And she was heavily made up, you know, and all this stuff. So then they get to this turbulence in Japan, and it's really serious. You know, the plane is going up and down and up and down. It can really be dangerous. If you don't have your seatbelt on, you can hit the ceiling, you can break your neck. This happens. So what is he doing? Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. And what's she doing? Screaming, you know, and trying and not knowing what, you know. So she's aware of what he's doing. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So when it's all over, and of course, you know, it finally quieted down, she wanted to know, well, what are you up to? You know, what were you doing, you know? And he tried to explain it to her. I forget if she was receptive or not, you know, but it had an effect on her. She saw that he was not freaking out. I mean, he was sincerely chanting, and he wasn't screaming. So he had a way of dealing with it. And there's some other instances I've heard of other devotees who were on planes that almost went down, you know. And it's a test, you know. And this was Narahari, who was prominent in Miami and then in Hawaii in the 80s, 70s, 80s. And he, you know, was on a plane that was almost crashing, but didn't crash. And so he also was just taking shelter of the holy name. So that's, you know, the great value. I mean, this thing, like, what is the very beginning? You know, the very beginning. I love this verse. It's practically the only verse that's quoted in the whole Krishna book. At the very beginning of the preface, I think, of introduction. And it's one of the first verses Pariksit speaks. He says, now, can you please, you know, describe Krishna's Leela, you know, because it was all in the ninth canto, you know, everything. And so, of course, that he's going to describe that. So he has this verse, some of you may know this, Nivritta Tarshire, Upagiyamana, Bhavausadat Shrota Mano Biramat, Kautama Shloka Gunanavadat Puman Vadajeta Vina Pashugnat. So he said, Nivritta Tarshar means those who are free of material thirst. In other words, the pure devotees. Upagiyamana, when they sing about Krishna's Leela and his pastimes, which are Bhavaushadach. Bhavaushada means the medicine to cure the disease of birth and death. And it's not a bitter medicine. Shrota mano abhiramat, which delights the mind and the ear, you see. So then he says, Ka uttama shloka gunanuvada. Now he uses the name uttama shloka, which means he is glorified in the best of shlokas. Gunanuvada, that which describes the qualities, names, pastimes of uttama shloka, Krishna. Puman vidajeta, who would give them up? Who would give up hearing this nectar, which would cure your birth and death, especially when sung by the great devotees? Who would give it up except vina pushugnat, except those who are the meat eaters, gross meat eaters, or who are killing the soul in a more general way, meaning, they can't really kill the soul, but they're killing their spiritual life by material absorption. But it also especially mentions the meat eaters, that I noticed, and we all noticed, that it's more likely if someone is a vegetarian that they'll be receptive to the message of Krishna consciousness. I was total, as I love telling everybody, you guys heard it a million times, I was raised as an orthodox communist. Totally, God, that's the opium of the people. It says right here in Marx, he's our Shastra, Das Kapital. So that, so the point is, and I was, I remember when you've heard this story, that when McDonald's opened in the early 60s, I remember we would go bowling, my friends and me, every Saturday night, and suddenly there's, you can get fries and cheeseburger. It's great. So I was just a regular meat eater, and I wasn't at all interested in it. I thought God was a myth, But after Krishna put me through a whole lot of pain, which I won't go into now, and I started with, a raw food diet, was vegetarian, and all this stuff to try to get my health back. And then I started to get interested in yoga, and from yoga I got interested in spirit and matter, and went to the temple in Brooklyn. And that was my, Kapindra. There was a wonderful devotee there who would preach. Amala Bhakta. He met Kapindra when he first went, and from that interaction, he became very interested in Krishna consciousness. Wonderful devotee. He was there in Brooklyn. So yeah, that's the story about Maharaj. He's doing what we should all do. As soon as there's any danger, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. That's the test, and it's our real shelter, the holy name. Okay, yes, Prabhu, but you need a mic. Here you go.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for the nice class.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for the anecdotes. Make it very interesting and captivating. Prabhu, we hear so many times that Srimad Bhagavatam or Krishna consciousness prepares us for dying. It's a preparation. So how can we be joyful and not morose at that thought? How can I joyfully prepare for it? I feel whenever I think about it, I don't take it enthusiastically. I want to prepare for it in a enthusiastic manner, and so how can we?
Well, we had a devotee here who was very advanced, Rajendra Nandana. I think those who remember him, and he, and we also had a lady who passed away, not here, but she was the daughter of one of our main members here. And they were very successful in their passing. I think Madhusudan also, but I don't know much about it. But Rajendra Nandana, he was an early disciple of Srila. He was a teacher in the Gurukul in Dallas and in Vrindavan. And eventually he married and he settled here. He was a member from early on. When I came in '89, I think he was here shortly thereafter. We saw him here. And he had a child, a son, and a wife, and he had an apartment here. And eventually what his routine was, he with another devotee, he started a business, and they would buy all kinds of stuff, and then during the spring and summer, he would go to different festivals and different fairs, and sell stuff and everything. And in this way, he would maintain his family. But during the summer or during the spring, starting with Lord Nrsingadev's appearance day, he would be in India. He would be in Mayapur, and he would be there for that, and Nityananda's appearance day, and Gaur Purnima, and he would spend months there. And he was taking the association, and as he described it, shiksha, as a Siksha guru, from Pankajandri, and his brother is? What is it? Jananivas. Jananivas. Everyone calls him Jananivas, but it's Jananajina. So he said that they really knew so much that they were absorbed in the deities, and Prabhupada said they're the best pujaris and all this. So he would take instruction there, and he'd go on all the parakrams, and he learned so much, and he became one of the ones who spoke about this place, that place, and this devotee, that devotee. So in other words, he was saturated in Krishna consciousness, and he was learning, how to really advance in Raganuga, Bhakti. So he was here, and he retired. He turned 65. He retired, and he would come every day for Mangalartik, and he would stay for class. He would give wonderful classes, and then one day we saw that he had a back problem. It was difficult for him to offer obeisances, And he told me later that he had chronic back problems over the years of his life. He had something problem. So gradually get cured from that, believe. But it didn't, it was worse. It was cancer. It turned out to be cancer. And so when he found out that it was incurable, he didn't freak out or anything, he just prepared. Basically, he retired. He just was trying to spend as much time with devotees. Unfortunately, I had badly sprained my ankle. I couldn't visit him. He was on the second floor of an apartment building, and I couldn't even come to the temple at that point. Serious sprain. But we talked on the phone, and devotees would visit him, and he was just hearing. He was just lying there hearing. It was just like, so much we hear of Prabhupada's, he stopped eating and drinking back practically. He wasn't really doing what is necessary to try to prolong his life. He was just focusing on hearing Krishna Katha, And then there was this event, some of you will hear, where his business partner came. He's also a devotee, and so he would visit him and spend hours with him, So Rajendranath is lying there, says, there were just two of them in the room. And he says, who are all these other people in the room? And so this friend, I forget his name, he said, oh, are they the good people? He says, yes. In other words, not the Yamadutas or anything there. Vishnu Dutas. And so he was seeing them, and then instead of like the 6 months, 7 months, they said, just after a couple of months of that, he departed very peacefully and successfully. And then we had Shamali. She grew up in the community. She's Yamuda Parti's and Parashakti's daughter. And she was just a young girl. When I first came here in '89, I remember her there. Then she started playing the flute, and I said, "Oh, I played with her a little because I played the flute." She grew up. She eventually went to college in UK, and there she was always, friends with devotees and everything. She was chanting. But I don't know how serious she was. I'm not going to make it. But she went on the Polish tour with Indra Swami, and this inspired her so much. She took initiation from him, and eventually she married the devotee who was our president here at one point, and then he went to Alachua, and they got married. And when I used to visit there, and they would invite me to lunch, and it was very pleasant, And then she has cancer. She was under 40. She was late 30s, And, oh boy, so Yamuna, he said he took time off his work, he visited her, I think Parashakti went to see her. And Yamuna, I think, basically staying with her. And Indra Swami is in Vrindavan, and he's calling her every day from there, and spending quality time with her, encourage her, and Krishna Katha. I made a few calls, and I had some prayers, I'll just share one verse for you. This is from the Govinda Lilamrita. There's this song of the Shuka and the Shari, and it's very famous. So I put it into English. I won't spare you the Sanskrit. It says, her gold complexion steals the pride of golden lotus tinged with red. Her fragrance mocks the scent of lotus bloom with saffron powder spread. Her skill in satisfying Shri Hari is perfect and complete. May Radhika bestow on me the service of her lotus feet. So I would be speaking that over the phone. She's listening on the other side, the whole Ashtaka. And at the end it says, anyone who, chants this or hears it, Radharani will pour her service upon him, opportunity for service. So she was getting all of this and friends from around the world. And then we had a memorial here, and Yamuna was described how at the end there, she was so relaxed and so peaceful. It was almost like he said, and then she expired, and he felt that the airplane came down from Vaikuntha to take her back. Because I saw so many people die in a hospital. I was, it was mostly they were completely sedated because they're freaking out, And sometimes there's this thing called terminal restlessness where people are seeing the dogs and the Yamadutas, they don't know what it is, and they complain to the nurses, oh, this is just a hallucination at the time. It's not an hallucination, they're actually seeing it. But for her, it was like she had reconciled everything and settled. So this is how it's possible to do it. And this is why the great value of association. I've been present at several other passings, where we're chanting, and the devotee's lying there. And it's so important to have someone to help you remember Krishna at that point. And so that's a great value. And in the meanwhile, anyway, I highly recommend these shlokas, learning verses, because they're like the prayer of Queen Kunti, Tvayame ananda vishaya mati madhupate sakrit ratamud vahatara dha gangeva ogamatanvati. O Madhava, please ever fill my mind with thoughts of thee, not any other kind. As Ganges torrent flows into the sea, let all my love flow constantly to thee. Now that's a perfect prayer, that we can all chant. There's no, and we can chant it to Krishna there. This is and so this is part of the great treasure that we've been given. The Bhagavatam is, don't forget, it's the desire, it's the ripened fruit of the desire tree of all the Vedas. And what is it? It's recognized even by non-devotees as a supreme Sanskrit poetry. So we have these verses, the prayers, the gopis singing of Krishna, Jayati Tedikam. So they help control the mind. There's content there, for the intellect. The meaning of the words, and I took the trouble of putting some of them into English because I know many devotees are not going to be able to learn this Sanskrit and everything, So that's a means which is saturate yourself in Krishna consciousness. And don't forget, when you glorify Krishna in this way and you take trouble, he's very pleased in the heart, and he cleans away the abhadras and the main abhadras that were forgetting him. So all these latent little desires that we're still maintaining and we don't even know they're there, that'll get purified. So that will become so attracted to hear and chant with our fellow devotees, and that's the best defense for and that greed for hearing and chanting and serving Krishna is the price of becoming absorbed in Krishna consciousness. Krishna Bhakti Dasa Bhavitamati. That line is the source of the phrase Krishna consciousness. Krishna Bhakti Dasa Bhavitamati, Prabhupada says that, which means the mind absorbed in Krishna Bhakti Rasa. Kriyatam yadikatopi labhyate. You should buy it if you can buy it in the marketplace. And what's the price? Bhakti Chair, what's the price for it? Yes, how you can buy pure bhakti. Greed, laulium. Yeah, greed is good. I'm not greed on the stock market, forget that. But greed for Krishna. But how to get it? That means, the taste, the trishna, the thirst has been transferred from matter to spirit, from Maya to Krishna. And that's what all of this is, the beauty of the deities, the chanting of the holy name, the prasadam, the association, the kirtan, everything, is meant to awaken our natural attraction for Krishna and make it so powerful that it eclipses everything else. Yadavadi mamacheta Krishna padadavane. This is a brahmachari verse. Yamunacharya is saying, ever since I've been enjoying at every moment, serving the lotus feet of Nandanandana and tasting the nectar of that. Whenever I remember, because he had been a king, all of the harem stuff, he said, when I remember the sex life, I spit at the thought. Prabhupada charmingly says, I spite at the thought. So imagine that, where there's so much detachment that it's not even a detachment, it's abhorrence. So that's, the worst poison. So that cultivation of hearing, chanting, and serving will stand you in good stead. And then at any time, You know, when there's a threat, you just get absorbed in Krishna. If now's the time, please take me, Krishna. Let me be the servant of your lotus feet, your soothing lotus feet. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. You know, Samashrita Yeda Palapalavam. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Hare Bol. Huh? Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Thank you so much for such a wonderful lecture, and also this question specifically, like I had this question for a long time, but Prabhuji asked and you answered very nicely. But I want to understand the other side of it. Like you gave two examples where these devotees knew that they are dying.
Where the devotees did what?
Devotees knew that they are dying.
Oh, they knew that they were dying. Yeah.
And also Parikshit Maharaj also, he knew that he has 7 days.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
then they retire and then they stop everything and then they just sit and do Bhagavad Katha and absorb. But there is other side to it where you sometimes, like most of the times, we don't know. So
Yes. So, but you know you're going to die.
yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, I remember this. I heard this early on. You know, we should live in such a way that we may die at any moment. You know, and there's verses like that. Yeah, have you ever heard of the Kevalashtaka?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know the Kevalashtaka a little bit. I put it into a poem. You can have it. Nikshvase, this is my favorite verse of the Kevalashtaka. Nikshvase nehi vishvaso kadarudho bhavishyati kirtane amata balyad hare namaiva kevalam. Remember that our final breath may come at any time. No matter if we're old and sick or in our youthful prime. So young and old alike should chant the name incessantly. The holy name of Shri Hari is surely all that be. He agrees there in the back. He's just doing the service of bringing these back in. And it's nice devotee who I've never seen before. So that, you know, in other words, that vigilance, that, you know, not to become inattentive. Because Maya's trick is to think, oh, come on, things are pretty nice, all right? You're young, you have a healthy body, you know. It's not so urgent. Slack off a little bit, you know. A little sense gratification never hurt anybody, you know. But suppose that's the time that, you know, you breathe your last. You never really know. And, you know, in this age, you know, especially here, you know, we're on an earthquake fault, you know that, you know. So, but that's what material life is. There's danger at every step. That's the whole point of the verse. So the more that we can, I remember they had these signs. Those who heard my class, they heard it. When in Brooklyn, they had, you know, nice paintings and everything. But then there'd be a sign: no gaps, no gaps. You know, and everyone knew what that meant. You know, no gaps in your Krishna consciousness. Try to keep chanting. So when you know, and the more that you cultivate your knowledge of Krishna and your awareness of, you know, ways in which to remember Him and glorify Him, the more you'll be eager to put your mind on that, which is a source of unending happiness. Like I'll end with this one verse. I know it's late. I'm sorry, but this is a short one. When the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu itself was printed, Bhanu Swami's, you know, we saw all the shlokas and everything. So one of the verses like this, describing Krishna's child Vatsalya Ras chapter. Okay. So it goes, Kṛṣṇa kanaka kinkani kalapam, smitamukamudjulanasika gramuktam, kadadutta navanita pindamangre, tanayamaveksanananda patni. Now, foolishly, I haven't put this one in a poem, so I'll just have to tell you what it means. So, Kṛṣṇa kanaka kinkani. Kṛṣṇa is sweetly tinkling. Kanaka is gold, and kinkani is waist bells, you know. So as Krishna crawls toward his mother, his waist bells, he's not wearing much more than just the waist bells and a pearl in his nose. It's sweetly tinkling. Kṛṣṇa kanaka kinkani kalapa means many waist bells tied together. So that's the first scene, it's auditory, but it's so beautiful Sanskrit. Kṛṣṇa kanaka kinkani kalapam, smita mukam, smiling face. He's smiling, you know, and he's coming toward his mother. You can imagine how blissful she is. Smita mukam ujjvala nasika gramuktam. So ujjvala is shining brilliantly. The muktam. Now this was the reason I remember this verse is that Bhanu Swami had kind of missed this verse. Muktam he thought had to do with liberation, but it's not. It's the pearl. On the tip of his nose or here, you know, he's wearing this effulgent pearl. So he's got the pearl there, the tinkling, you know, waist bells, and then here's the clincher. Kadadritandavanita pindam. He's got a ball of fresh butter in his hand, and he's crawling with one arm, you know, toward his mother and smiling at her, you know. So what happens, what is she feeling? Obviously. Kadadutanamanita bindam agre tanayam aveksha, seeing this body, this form of her son in front of her, tanayam aveksha nanandananda patni. So it's just that, nananda means to delight, to bliss. Or a word that I say, it's a real word that we need in ISKCON, and it needs to be revived. It's from English, from England. Ecstasize. Ecstasize, not exercise, ecstasize. Okay. To go into ecstasy or to put someone else in ecstasy. I see. Don't we need that word? I was ecstasize on the Harinam. Yeah. Or Prabhu, your class just extasized me. Okay, is that enough? I think I'm up to all glory to Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Sorry, I went way over time. Hare Krishna.